You know, when we talk about green energy, it's easy to picture this perfect, clean future. But what happens when building that future actually ends up hurting the very people it's supposed to help? Today, we're diving deep into one of the world's largest solar parks to uncover the really complex, human story behind this huge push for renewable power.
And that brings us right to the heart of it. The big question we're tackling today: is green energy always fair? It's a question that honestly forces us to look way beyond just the solar panels and the kilowatts, and instead focus on the real lives and livelihoods on the ground.
So just to give you a sense of the scale we're dealing with, get this. 13,000 acres. That's the footprint of the Pavagada Solar Park in India. I mean, that's bigger than a lot of cities, all transformed into this massive power plant under the sun.
Now, this whole thing kicked off as a massive solar-powered dream. It was set to be a shining example of India's big ambitions for a clean energy future.
You see, at 2.05 gigawatts, this park isn't just big, it's a global heavyweight. It was designed as a flagship project, a symbol of national progress that was supposed to deliver clean power, pull in investment, and slash carbon emissions. A real trifecta.
And the location? Well, that was no accident. The government specifically chose this spot because local farmers were really struggling. They'd been hammered by drought for years. So the pitch was pretty simple. Lease us your so-called unproductive land, and in return, we'll give your communities a steady income, something they desperately needed.
But to build this dream, they first had to solve a huge problem, what you might call the Great Land Dilemma, which is often the biggest roadblock for any mega project in India.
And to really get why these communities were under so much pressure, you have to look at the history here. This wasn't some recent dry spell. We're talking about a region that's been battling drought for 6 decades. In fact, it's been officially declared a drought zone 54 separate times. That long, painful history is it's central to this whole story.
So what this meant was that just going in and trying to buy 13,000 acres of ancestral land, well, it was a total non-starter. In India, that kind of process is famously slow and complicated. It almost always triggers protests and legal challenges that can drag on for years, stalling everything. They needed a whole new playbook.
And that new playbook was a pretty clever, game-changing lease model. It was an innovative solution designed to sidestep the whole land acquisition nightmare entirely.
Okay, so here's how this clever model worked. Instead of buying the land, a state corporation leased it directly from the farmers for 28 years. Now, this is the crucial part. The farmers kept legal ownership of their land. That was huge. In exchange, they got a guaranteed annual rent that even increased every couple of years. Then, the state corporation took all that pooled land and subleased it to the private companies who'd actually build and operate the solar park.
The researchers who've studied this call this process recoding. And it's a great term. It's basically just rewriting the rulebook. By swapping out the old land purchase model for this new leasing model, they created a whole new legal and financial path that really is the only reason this park exists today.
And you can see the official thinking right here in this quote. An official from the state corporation basically said, look, buying this land was going to be way too hard. Plus, land is a sensitive thing here and farmers just don't want to sell. So the lease seemed like the perfect solution. On paper, it really did look like a win-win for everyone involved.
So, what happened when this perfect plan met reality? Well, the landscape was transformed, all right, into a vast, shimmering sea of glass. But the impact on the people living there? Well, that was a very different and very divided story.
For the people who owned land, the benefit was real and it was immediate. They started getting a steady income of about $1,227 per acre per year. Now, in a place where farming was a constant, stressful gamble against the weather, that kind of predictable money was absolutely life-changing.
And you can just hear the relief in this quote from a local village leader. For them, the lease put money in their pockets and gave them a security they'd likely never felt before. For this group, the landowners, the project was a clear success.
But that security for the landowners came at a direct cost to other people. For landless agricultural workers, like the woman you see quoted here, their jobs vanished almost overnight. All that farm work disappeared, and it was a blow that hit women in the community the hardest.
And there was another group that felt the pain: the pastoralists, the herders. The massive fences that went up around all 13,000 acres suddenly cut off the ancient grazing routes they'd used for generations. Herders who depended on that common land to feed their cattle found themselves, quite literally, fenced out.
So what emerged was this really sharp divide. The project created a clear set of winners, the landowners, who got financial stability and got to keep their land. But it also created a clear set of losers, the pastoralists and the landless women, who lost access to common lands, lost their jobs, and, in many ways, lost their way of life.
What happened here in Pavagada offers some incredibly powerful lessons for building a truly just future, reminding us that the social side of green energy is every bit as important as the technology itself.
The project completely upended the local economy. Agricultural work, which was the backbone, just plummeted. It was replaced by a much, much smaller number of low-skilled jobs at the park, thanks security guards or cleaning the panels. This lack of real opportunity kicked off a brand new trend, young people leaving for big cities like Bangalore to find decent work.
And the ripple effects of that economic shift are they're profound. One observer from a civil society group reported that because women lost their income from farm work and livestock, the nutrition for the whole family suffered. And this is shocking. The financial strain actually led to some families pulling their daughters out of school.
So what can we all learn from this about a just energy transition? Well, first, we have to look past the shiny tech to the people. It means making sure that the most vulnerable groups, the landless workers, the pastoralists, actually have a seat at the table when these deals are made. It's not just about an energy shift. We have to plan for a livelihood shift. And ultimately, we have to recognize that how we build our green future is just as important as what we're building.
But you know, the story doesn't quite end there. Something pretty amazing and unexpected happened. In response to all this, a strong farmers association was formed. United by this project, they now have a collective voice, and they have a new vision for their future. And their dream? That in 28 years, when all these leases are up for renewal, the community itself could take over and own the park.
And that dream leaves us with one last vital question. It's not just if we're going to build a green future. It's about who gets to participate in it, who benefits from it, and maybe most importantly, who gets to own it. The answer to that question is really going to define what justice looks like in this new era.